On today's show, the Hawks get their second consecutive win in a period of 3 days over the previously 17-1 Cleveland Cavaliers. This time around, it was the defense more than the offense, and we'll get to how it transpired for the Hawks, what it means moving forward, and much more, and all that is coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1856 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Friday evening here in late November. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. Begin the season right now with a big return at FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're a new customer, place a $5 bet. You can start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. The place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you, as I always do at the top of the show, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Apple and Spotify and Overcast and Amazon Music, etc. On the audio side, we are also on YouTube. On the video side, please like this video as you are watching it and subscribe on both audio and video platforms to support the podcast. And today's show, we'll dive into what became a 117-101 victory for the Hawks at home against the Cavs on a Black Friday afternoon holiday extravaganza kind of performance. Their second win in the last 3 days against the Cavs, who came in at 17-1 before that. A massive win for NBA Cup purposes, which I'll come back to in a second, but another just tremendous effort from the Hawks. A tremendous two-way performance from the Hawks in this game. If you missed it, on Wednesday, the Hawks had their best offensive game of the season, pretty clearly, I thought. And tonight, on Friday, it was mostly just solid on offense, but it was excellent defensively and one of their best defensive games of the season. And that two-way effort led to, honestly, certainly one of their 3 or 4 best wins of the year. You could argue for their biggest win in some respects. Put this one next to the game on Wednesday, next to the game in Boston, the win over New York. Certainly one of their better wins of the season. And Atlanta now is 9-11 after a 7-11 start to the campaign. As far as the game is concerned, they actually took a solid lead in the first half. They were only up by 2 at halftime, and the game kind of broke open a little bit in the third quarter, where they really seized control with a 23-9 run early in the third quarter to go up 16 points by the middle of that period. From that point forward, it was not always flawless by any means in the second half, but the Hawks did lead by double digits for the final 18-plus minutes of this game, and that was huge on the way to a comfortable win. And by the end, the Cavs were pulling their starters with 2.5 minutes to go, which is not something that you would have necessarily projected in the game where the Hawks were about 6-point underdogs, according to FanDuel, in this game. So not a monumental upset on the level of what happened in Boston or even what happened on Wednesday, honestly, in Cleveland, but still a game that the Hawks were not favored to win, that they were honestly in control of for the vast majority of the game, and a very, very impressive performance from this team. Before we dive into actually how this game unfolded, one note here. I'm recording this podcast at like 6:30-ish p.m. Eastern time on Friday. So people have time to listen to it before the Hawks play again, by the way, tomorrow. If they did not play tomorrow, I would have probably held the podcast until late tonight. But I say that because the Hawks have not clinched East Group C just yet in the NBA Cup. Contrary to what I saw reported erroneously a few different times on social media and on all kinds of places today, even in the arena, the Hawks were acting like they won the NBA Cup. Not the team, but just like some of the game op stuff. Anyway, as of this recording, the Hawks have not clinched the group victory. Now, they are the favorite to do so. And when you listen to this podcast on Friday night or on Saturday morning, you may have actually have more information than I do. But anyway, as I read this, and as I say this to you, they have not clinched this yet. But if the Celtics beat the Bulls on Friday, the Hawks will win Group C. So Atlanta had to win today to have a chance to win the group. They did in upset fashion. If Boston beats Chicago tonight or Friday night as I'm recording this podcast, they will win Group C and advance to the quarterfinals of the NBA Cup. If Boston loses to Chicago, then Chicago wins the group, and the Hawks are left holding their breath and trying to win the wild card in the East. They can win the wild card. That's possible. We will not know that until Tuesday because the NBA Cup actually continues on Tuesday, just not for the Hawks. Atlanta's point differential now is plus 15, which is conceivable enough to actually get out of the wild card. But the cleanest route is for the Hawks to get some help from Boston. In fact, Trae Young said this is basically the only time that he's ever going to root for the Celtics is tonight when they play when they play the Bulls, because it would definitely help the Hawks. As I'm recording this podcast, Boston is about a 12-point favorite at FanDuel to beat Chicago. Again, you might know the results of this pretty soon, but that's what we're looking for. And I say all that now because on the podcast tomorrow, we'll know by then what happens. But That's the state of play right now. The Hawks had to win. They won the game. And I understand your mileage may vary on how much you care about the NBA Cup, but the Hawks wanted to win it. They still want to win it. And now they have a chance. They are very much alive, either winning the group tonight or having a chance to have the wild card for at least by Tuesday. Okay, back to the game itself. I sort of mentioned this a second ago, but the defense led the way in this game. They had a 98 defensive rating in this game. If you're not familiar with that, that is absolutely excellent. 100 is uber elite, and that means you're allowing 1 point per possession. The Hawks allowed less than a point per possession in this game. That's fantastic. It was also the least points scored, 101, and the worst efficiency of the season for the Cavs. The Cavs have been awesome offensively this year. Number one in the league coming into today and also coming into Wednesday. But all that said, the Hawks had their best defensive efficiency game of the season against a great offensive team. Cleveland came into Wednesday's game with a league-leading 122.8 offensive rating for the season. That is fantastic, elite stuff. In 2 games, Atlanta held them to a 107.7. That's really, really awesome defense. And Wednesday was more offensive based for the Hawks. They were just incredible on offense in that game, I thought. Tonight, it was really the defense that led the way for Atlanta. They held the Cavs to about 50% on twos, which is very good. They were 11 of 38 from 3. And look, there is some good fortune in there in the accuracy. When I point out that the Hawks get some bad fortune sometimes in 3-point shooting, there's always variance there. When I note it on that side, I have to note on the other side, the Hawks were pretty fortunate 3-point shooting wise in these 2 games. But usually that happens sometimes. Like sometimes it'll be bad for you, it'll be good for you. To begin the season, the Hawks have been pretty unlucky from 3-point range on offense and defense. In this game, it swung in their direction as it did on Wednesday. Darius Garland and Karis LeVert had 7 threes combined, but the rest of the team hit only 4 for the total of 11. Donovan Mitchell was just absolutely terrible, honestly, in this game. He was 5-23 from the field. Dyson Daniels, clamps, as they call him, or Great Barrier Thief, et cetera, et cetera. But he continues to play awesome basketball, and Donovan was bad for the Cavs. But the Hawks did other things well, too. They rebounded very well defensively. That's big when you force misses or get missed shots. To secure the glass is very important, and they won the glass in this game. They did have some transition issues, I thought, in this one, but the Cavs had an 82 offensive rating in the half court, which is 16th percentile. That means the Hawks did a great job defensively when they were able to set their defense. They also allowed only 17 free throw attempts in this game. And yeah, one more time, they had some good fortune for 3-point shooting, but they also limited attempts in this game. Only 38. That's actually totally fine, totally solid. And the Hawks played very, very well. So even if the Cavs had shot normal-ish from 3, the Hawks still would have probably won this game and would have still held the Cavs to a very, very modest efficiency. So it wasn't just 3-point shooting luck in this game for Atlanta. They played great on defense. On offense, it was not as picturesque. They had about a 114 offensive rating. That's actually totally fine, like league average or better. They shot it great in this one. Atlanta was 59% on twos and 41% from 3. That was the biggest edge the Hawks had, was their shooting, because the rest of the offense was not exactly fantastic on the margins in this game. They were okay on the glass. They had 21 turnovers that led directly to 21 points. That really hurt their efficiency. I will say, though, to their credit, it got better as the game went along. They had a disastrous ball security start in the first half. It got better. It wasn't always great. That's too many turnovers. Everyone agrees on that. And in the end, the Cavs ended up taking, I think it was about 8 more shots from the field or overall than the Hawks did. Usually you want to have that number be even or better on your side. So to win a game comfortably by 16 points, when you lose a possession battle, that means you shot the heck out of the ball. And the Hawks did in this game. They also had 33 assists. That is crazy. They've been passing the ball at a super high level. And as Quinn said after the game, and this is true to some extent, when you pass more and move the ball more, you will have more turnovers. The Hawks have been really excellent, like 5 years in a row, basically, until this year at turnover rate. But this year, more passing leads to more turnovers. That might sound wrong, but it actually is borne out in the data. The teams that have like one shot creator, like the Hawks have had with Trae Young in previous years, tend to have really good turnover rates. This year, it's been a little bit higher. Anyway, they still had some bad moments ball security-wise in this game, but they had great shooting at the rim, 77%. That was a disaster zone on Wednesday. They shot like 48% at the rim on Wednesday. Tonight, it was 77%. And Quinn's been banging this drum as well, not forcing bad shots in the lane, because just because you get to the lane does not mean it's a good shot. Contested shots or difficult floater range attempts, etc. The Hawks did a good job passing out of those situations. And look, it was not a perfect offensive process game. I am big on process and nuance, etc. But they made shots. And that has to be the case sometimes to keep your offense going. And they did in this game. And they had good balance as well. Like basically no one played poorly for Atlanta on the whole. They had 8 guys with 7 points or more, 6 in double figures for Atlanta. 3 guys had 20 points or more. It was very balanced. No one was like out of this world hot in this game other than maybe DeAndre Hunter. But yeah, it was just really solid across the board. And look, people ask these questions after the game, of course, like, does this mean a new leaf for the Hawks? Obviously, the hope is yes. I stood on this last week, and I'll say it again now. The Hawks, I thought, were underperforming where their baseline is until these last 2 games. They were 7-11. I think they're a better team than that. But they're not also, I don't think, as good as beating the Cavs twice would tell you that they are. So there's a fine line in the middle there, but encouraging for sure. And they do have some strong upside. We see that on a nightly basis. It's hard to have that all the time. They're not as good as the Celtics or the Cavs right now on the big picture sense. But the Hawks won these games like solidly. It was not fluky. The shooting variance went their way, yes, but they won those games comfortably in both spots, which is actually, this was not a 1-point win because they got some shooting luck. So anyway, big picture, a great 3-day period for Atlanta. You don't want to give it back. At the end of the podcast, we'll talk about this. They play a game that is very a lot easier on paper on Saturday in Charlotte. But look, this is the NBA. You don't want to lose that game. So it's like nothing is easy for you. You can't rest on your laurels. They have a game literally 24 hours as I'm recording this podcast. So no let up. But for 3 days, the Hawks have been awesome. 2 wins and a lot of attention across the league. And honestly, again, NBA Cup-wise, they're in great shape as well as I record this podcast. Okay, more to come in a second on how this game unfolded. But first, a word from our partners on today's podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Skylight Frame. If you come from a big family, it can be hard and expensive to buy each one a personal gift for the holidays. But if you're planning on celebrating the holidays with your friend group and you want to surprise them all with something that's a little bit more special and meaningful than something else this year, we have a perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame for your whole family, and everybody will love it, honestly. Upload thousands of different photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds at Skylight Frame. And with Skylight Frame, setup takes less than 60 seconds. But actually, the whole thing to set up, and that's very easy. It only takes a tap of your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest and easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop, and they will feel so much better and more connected to you as a result. Skylight Frame also looks beautiful in your home. Photos are displayed in HD resolution. You can choose from 5 different frame styles. Plus, you can set it up in portrait or in landscape mode. More than 1 million happy customers appreciate Skylight Frame already, including thousands of 5-star reviews, and they're available in more than 30 countries at this point. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase at Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That is Skylight, SKYLIGHT, frame, skylightframe.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase right now at skylightframe.com/NBA. All right, and as we always do here, we'll kind of dig into how this game unfolded as far as the process was concerned. It was a okay start, I thought. A couple of big blocks early on, one from Capella on Mobley. There was a great pass by Jalen Johnson across the court to Ricochet for a 3. Ricochet had a big block as well on Isaac Okoro, but they were still down by 16, actually down 16-8 early on. Garland was the one guy that had it going for Cleveland in this game offensively. He had a couple of tough off-the-dribble threes, and the Hawks had 6 turnovers in the first 4.5 minutes of this one. It was plaguing them. They had more turnovers than shooting possessions in the first 5 minutes of this game, which is obviously a tough start. I thought Cleveland was allowed to be very physical defensively in this one. And I thought the Hawks did adjust to that eventually. It took them a little while, but I thought the way that it was called was they were letting a lot go, which kind of favored the way that Cleveland was playing early on in this game. They settled in a little bit from there. Rotation-wise, it was the same group that it's been for a little while now with everybody healthy. It's the top 8 plus Bufkin, the normal entries of Bogdanovic, Hunter, and Okongwu in this spot. Kobe came in with Jalen. They did kind of take Okongwu out earlier than usual in both halves and then close with him, which worked out well. He played very well in this game, I thought. Hunter was great in this one, honestly. He made his first 3 shots and a nice pass to Bogey for a kick-out 3. Quinn praised him up and down, and rightly so, after the game was over. The Hawks did have a pretty rough possession at the very end of the quarter, but otherwise they stabilized pretty well and were right there, actually up 2 points at the end of the first quarter, despite a little bit of up and down nature. Second quarter was kind of the big slugfest of the game. Both teams couldn't make a shot for a while. It was 2-13 combined to begin the second quarter. Jalen had a couple of nice plays driving to the rim, but there was a terrible turn by Capella that was kind of funny to see. Hawks had one big run mid-second quarter, a 13-4 run after took a while to actually happen, but they did a pretty good job defensively as they did the entire game. Clint was much better in the second stint as he came back after a rough first one. Ty Jerome had a rough minute for the Cavs. We actually got 2 fouls and a technical foul in like 40 seconds. Hunter was hot, making every shot that he took. Basically, the Hawks were actually up by 11 points with like 2 minutes to go in the first half. Then they allowed a 9-0 run. This time around, like the Hawks had some pretty rough closes to quarters this year. It wasn't necessarily that. Like the Cavs made 3 pull-up threes in a row, and like they were not super difficult looks, but they were not easy looks either. And you make all 3 of them, what are you going to do? The Hawks were ugly offensively in the first half. As I sort of alluded to before, they had about a 101 offensive rating in the first half, but they had 11 turnovers, and that was the reason why. Defensively, it was really excellent. They got killed in the possession game, and they still were up by 2, which was a good sign looking to the second half. And it was honestly the best stretch of the game was the beginning of the third quarter, and that's where the Hawks really won this game, I think. It was a 23-9 extended run over about 7 minutes to go up by 16 points after being up by 2 at the half. I thought Capella was awesome in that stretch. He was 4 for 4 from the floor. He had a massive like time machine dunk over Cleveland's bigs that surprised everyone, including me. He had 4 rebounds. He had a block shot. He was just awesome in that stretch. The Hawks defensively were really, really good, staying home on everybody. They only allowed 3 3-point attempts in the first 7 minutes of the second half. I thought Dyson and Ricochet were just tremendous, really individually awesome in that stretch defensively. Karis LeVert did make some shots for the Cavs to kind of avoid a bigger deficit, but the Hawks went by 20 late in the third. Really good stuff from Hunter and Okongwu in that run. Hunter had a really nice driving 3-point play to force a Cleveland timeout. And Cleveland had 1 timeout left with like 14 minutes left in the game. Like they were playing great. The Cavs did score at the very end, but the Hawks had 39 points on 25 possessions in the third quarter offensively. That's more than a 150 offensive rating. So the entire rest of the game, they were pretty mediocre offensively, or worse, honestly. But they were so good in the third quarter that definitely helped things. They made 4 threes, yes, but they were 12 of 15 on 2s, and they had 12 assists in the third quarter. They were awesome. In the fourth, it was a little bit rough to start things off. They had 3 turnovers in the first 90 seconds of the fourth quarter, and it was kind of like alarm bells for longtime Hawks fans with a big lead. And the offense was really out of sorts. It did, though, make some scramble plays offensively. Ricochet made a nice one where he had a couple of shot fakes around Mobley for a bucket. He played a little bit longer in the fourth quarter, which I actually liked in this game. Capella had one, and Dyson had one on the same possession where nothing was going on, but Capella had an offensive rebound that saved the possession, and then Dyson had one that he threw the ball off the opposition to save a possession as well. I thought Trae was competing defensively in that stretch on the glass. They were playing hard, just not necessarily beautifully on offense. But then out of that timeout, up 15, Trae hit a very difficult corner 3 on the right side to go up by 18 points. They should have been okay at that point in time, like safe. They weren't. Cleveland scored the next 6 points to get kind of in the mix there. They had 2 really rough offensive possessions in a row. In fact, there was a stretch where they had 13 points on 17 possessions, which is not good offensively. And quick call timeout, up by 12 with like 4.5 to go. And it was not over at that point. Obviously, you're in control, but the game is very much sort of up for debate and in doubt. They wanted the Okongwu to close against the Mobley center lineup of Cleveland, which I thought was a good idea, honestly, even as good as Capella had been in the second half. But they had kind of a rough possession and on offense. But honestly, maybe the biggest shot of the game, in my opinion, just like flow-wise, Jalen at the end of the shot clock probably should have shot it, I thought, honestly, kicks it out to Okongwu in the right corner. And I'll say this, Okongwu, before this shot, this season, was 6 of 32 from 3. That is sub 20% from 3 on the season. But he had to take it and take it fast to beat the shot clock. He got it off. He made it, put the Hawks up by 15 points. And that was probably the dagger on some level. Like the Cavs did come back and score the next 5 points. But Dyson had another big one too. Like there were probably 2 or 3. I would say the Trae shot in the right corner, the Okongwu shot in the right corner, and then Dyson had a 3 that was a pretty deep one at the end of the shot clock. All of those happened. It's kind of funny though. The next possession was a much better possession offensively for the Hawks. They got a good drive, kicked to Jalen for a wide open 3, and he missed it. So it's like, make or miss league. All those things are true for a reason. You can't predict them. But the Hawks were up, again, double digits the entire time. It was never like super comfortable till 2.5 minutes to go. And then I was honestly surprised by this. The Cavs were down 12 with 2:20 to go, something like that. And they pulled Mobley, Mitchell, and Garland and kind of waved the white flag. Now, that's not crazy. You see that sometimes, but in an NBA, I guess they're already eliminated from the NBA Cup, so that wasn't a big deal there. But they punted a little bit earlier than you would expect, and that kind of ended the game. The Hawks were comfortable from there. Won by 16 points. Those it may not matter if the Boston wins tonight, but as you listen to this podcast, just know that I don't know that yet. So that point differential might have helped the Hawks. They're now plus 15 because they won this game by 16 points. Winning this game comfortably actually might help them for the wild card if they need it. But yeah, big picture, the Hawks did win every quarter. Actually, no, that's not true. They actually lost the fourth quarter of this game. But the big swing was definitely the third quarter. Like, they played good defense the entire game, honestly, with a little bit of help from Cleveland shooting. But the offense in the third quarter was really the difference, and that's why they broke that one open. Every other quarter was Hawks by 2, dead even, Cavs by 2. So it was all close, and then the third broke it open, and that was where the Hawks stole this game. And really, honestly, I shouldn't even say stole. They just outplayed them. The Hawks were just the better team in this game, which was really encouraging on a lot of different fronts, in my opinion. Okay, we'll get to the individual players in a second, and there's plenty to talk about in a positive direction from this game on that front. First, though, a word from our partners on the show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You're ready to tackle the season right now in the NFL, NBA, etc. with FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook, and right now, if you're a new customer, you get $150 in bonus bets when you win and place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use. It gives you everything that you need to place your bets all in one place, and they have all the stuff you're looking for across the sports betting space, from over-unders, point spreads, money lines, player props, game props, future bets, same-game parlays, live betting, and so much more. The FanDuel app is also safe and secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That, of course, includes the NBA. We talk about all the time on this podcast, plus college football, NFL, MLB, WNBA. They have hockey. They have golf, tennis, all the soccer leagues across the world. Auto racing, they have F1, NASCAR, etc., boxing, MMA, and so much more. And now's a great time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. And $150 bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, to the player stuff for the Hawks in this game. 9 guys appeared. At least in the competitive portion. They did bring in David Roddy, B. Krejci, and Garrison Matthews for the final minute or so. Nice to have those guys get in the game a little bit at the very end. But 9 guys played. There was a clear delineation. 8 of them played 21 minutes or more, and then there was Buffkin with 13. Kobe played only the non-Trae minutes, which is totally fine with me. The Hawks were actually +6 in his minutes. I don't think he was great individually. I think he was better on Wednesday for sure offensively, but defensively did a really good job in this game. Also had 3 assists, had a steal, only 1 turnover. It was clunky offensively with him out there and not Trae. Part of that's just it wasn't Trae, but I thought he was okay. Offensively, not great, but defensively did his job. He moved the ball well, etc. Okongwu was really good. I don't know if he was as good as he was on Wednesday, where it was really pretty awesome, but 15 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, made a bunch of big plays down the stretch. They closed with him in both halves. I like that approach from the Hawks in this game. I thought he was the effective option, especially against these smaller Cleveland lineups. Capella was good too, but I thought Okongwu was really made a bunch of big plays. I thought, especially on offense, where the Hawks kind of needed it down the stretch. Bogey was a mixed bag, had 10 points, had 5 fouls in 24 minutes, which is kind of funny. 2 of 3 from 2, but 2 of 8 from 3. Didn't have his great shooting night, but 6 rebounds, had an assist and a steal. He was better and more engaged defensively than he has been. Not great necessarily, but certainly better than he's been in the last couple of games. So you'll take that a little bit from Bogey. The shooting will always kind of be what drives his value in a lot of ways, but he was being guarded at a high level, and I thought he was at least better defensively in this game. Hunter was awesome off the bench, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover. Was a bench best +14 in this spot. And I really, really thought that DeAndre, he's been playing great. He was really awful in the Mavs game, as was Bogey. But other than that, he has been rock solid. It's coming back. He's played in I think it's 7 games now. I think he's had 20 points or 22 points or more in 4 of those 7 games. It's not all about the scoring, but he's playing really aggressively. Quinn Snyder was certainly just very, very positive about DeAndre Hunter after the game, as he should have been. The way he's approached the game offensively, some of the self-creation stuff is actually very useful for this team. He took one kind of throwback mid-ranger in this game where I didn't love it, but it went in. Its process is not terrible. He's attacking with conviction. He's taking the 7 3-point attempts in 28 minutes. Is very good for him. Defensively, he was better in this game than he's been the last couple. I thought he was really effective, and the Cavs had no answers for him, honestly. So that's great. Someone asked me today, I'll probably talk about this a little bit more later on, about Hunter and 6th man of the year consideration. Yeah, he's definitely a candidate. If he stays in this role and stays healthy, that's the biggest one, is the last thing. But if he stays healthy, he's certainly playing like a candidate for that award. We'll see if that continues. It's still early in the season, but certainly he's been playing awesome and very, very useful for the Hawks. The guy who played the least in the starting lineup was Ricochet, but he did play more in this game than he's played the last couple. 21 minutes. He had 11 points, 3 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and a block. +1 for Ricochet. 2 of 4 from the floor. 2 of 4 from 2. 2 of 4 from 3 as well. Got the line. Made 1 of 2. I think defensively, he continues to be so much better than the majority, I would say the vast majority of rookies. Like, I know that people wanted him to score points and put up numbers. He did a little bit of that in this game. He was effective as a 3-point shooter, etc. But I cannot describe to you like how bad a lot of rookies, even top picks, even top 5 picks, top 3 picks are defensively sometimes as 19-year-olds. And Ricochet is not. He's a very impressive defender by rookie. And honestly, for me, he's been an above average defender this year, which is a lot for me to say for a rookie. So that's impressive. He showed that in this game as well. Capella had a really, really bad first stint of the game. He was pretty awful in the first 5 minutes. After that, he was really, really, really good. Ended up with 8 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and an assist, +15, 4-7 from the floor. Clint made a bunch of highlight plays on both ends of the floor. I think defensively, the 3 blocks, I think 2 of them were really big plays, 2 steals. He was very active. He did a good job on Allen. He got in the way of Mobley a few times. The finishing around the rim, like the dunk that he had over Mobley and Allen was actually like a stunner, honestly, even for me. So it took him a while to get into the game for sure, but once he got in there, he played very well. And still, I think it was the right call to close with the Kongwu. He was more comfortable in the matchup given that Cleveland was playing small. But I thought Capella improving. The Hawks got really good center play, which is very helpful in this game. Dyson, his big value in this one was defensively, of course. I gave the numbers already, but he held Donovan Mitchell to 5 of 23 from the field, 12 points for Mitchell. That's not all on Daniels. Like, I always say this about every score and matchup. Nobody in the NBA individually can stop a superstar. But when you're Dyson Daniels, it's a great weapon to have with him to throw at a superstar like Donovan Mitchell. And he bothered him all night long. He was all up in him the entire game. That's a huge weapon to have for the Hawks. 3 steals again for Dyson, 4 assists, 7 rebounds. He's a little bit passive right now as a scorer at the rim, which I'm not loving. A little bit indecisive. He was 2 of 8 on twos in this game. That's an area of concern, I will say. You want him to stay aggressive, and he's been losing a little bit of that recently. I don't want that. I think the Hawks probably don't want that either. But other than that, I think defensively he was huge. As a ball handler, he was very helpful in this game. And then the 4 assists, 3 steals, and +10 for Dyson. Jalen Johnson was really good. Again, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Again, like Jalen, I think has four assists or more in all but like 2 games. His passing has been really, really useful. I think defensively he was pretty good overall in this one, which is a step forward. I haven't loved his defense for large portions of the season, but I think the flashes have been there. And I will, this is not my original thought necessarily, but I think Jalen had a really slow start to the season. I know others have pointed that out, including Grant Shirley, good friend of the podcast, and Andrew Kelly. But, Jalen, the first 3 games of the year, I think it was like something like 11 of 32 or something like that from the field. And ever since then, he's been super efficient and putting up monster numbers, like monster numbers. He has 20 points or more and like every game but 3 essentially since the first game. So he's been honestly on a tear. I don't want to talk about it just yet, but he's playing at an all-star level. I don't want to say that in a exuberant way, but he's averaging 20, 10, and 5 assists, which there are 4 guys in the league doing right now, including Jalen. The other 3 are Nikola Jokic, the best player in the world, Giannis, a top 5 player in the world, former MVP, champion, etc., and then Domantas Sabonis, who isn't quite as good as those guys, but certainly is a star. That's some rare company. Obviously, those are arbitrary endpoints, but 20, 10, and 5 is something you can't sneeze at. And the passing, man, these are his assist totals the last handful of games. 10, 7, 4, 4, 5, 3, 7, 7 as a power forward. That is not a small thing. So he's been awesome and was very good again in this game. And then Trae Young, 21 points, 11 assists, did have 7 turnovers, and he kind of made fun of himself post-game. He got a question from Warren Williams about the turnovers for the Hawks, and he kind of jokingly said, I think they were all 9, which was not true. But he had 7, that's too many, and he will acknowledge that. I will also say that. But the passing was once again there. I think my friend Kevin Starr had the stat first. Trae has like 60-something assists more than anyone in the league right now. He is averaging over 12 per game. Only 11 in this game, quote unquote only, but he was quite good in this one. 5 of 5 on twos, which is very useful. 2 of 5 from 3, 5 of 5 at the free throw line. He was efficient, he was effective, and played some solid defense, I thought, in this one as well, as a little topper to things. So that's all I have, but it was an awesome, awesome performance from the Hawks. Before we get out of here, though, a reminder. I alluded to it earlier, the Hawks do play a game on Saturday. So less than 20, well, I guess about 24 hours-ish from the time that they leave the arena in Atlanta post-game, get on a flight, they'll be tipping off. They have a 6 o'clock game Eastern time in Charlotte on Saturday. It's a back-to-back with travel. That's never easy. On the bright side, the Hornets also play today, and it's the shortest trip the Hawks can make in the league. Charlotte is the closest city to Atlanta that they play in. Also, they have a little bit more time because it was an afternoon game today versus a evening game. But still, it's a back-to-back with travel, and those are not easy. So I want to give that caveat right now. I know what people are going to say about this game because there's lots of uncertainty with it. The Hawks just won these 2 games. The Hawks have struggled in Charlotte in recent years, I will say. Notably, the Hornets did have a walking wounded team today. Now, they only lost by 1 point to the Knicks in a hideous 99-98 slugfest in Charlotte. But they started a lineup today that had Vasily Micic, Josh Green, Tijon Salon, and Moussa Diabate in it, along with Brandon Miller. So they're very banged up right now, let's just say, are the Hornets. They didn't have LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Nick Richards, Mark Williams, and Trae Mann all today. And then Grant Williams out for the year. So we'll see if those guys could return on Saturday. At least some of them could. So TBD on that. We won't know about the injury stuff until Saturday afternoon. But I will just say this out loud. And the Hawks know this, but you cannot take that game lightly. It will be tough. It's hard to come back up after 2 huge wins, get yourself back up 24 hours later against a not that great team in maybe a sleepy arena on a Saturday. It is what it is, but the Hawks have to win that game. Take care of business in that one. Nothing's a must win. I would never say that ever. But the Hawks will be favored in the game. They should be favored in the game. It's taking care of business spot. We'll see if they do. And then after that, they're back at home for a game on Monday against DeJounte Murray and company, and we'll talk about that game extensively. So we'll sign off now. One more time. The big one, if you're looking for a rooting interest, if you're listening to this podcast right after I post or whenever, the Hawks need the Celtics to win on Saturday. If you listen to this podcast on Saturday, hopefully the Hawks, for the Hawks' sake, Boston did win, and I'll have more on that with detail on tomorrow's show. Post-game, I'll have my usual show about the Hornets game, but I will throw in the finalized, or at least maybe not finalized, but we'll see, NBA Cup stuff on that podcast. Please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcast. I very much appreciate that. Check us out on Apple and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, and like the show as you're watching it there. But please do me a favor and subscribe on audio if you're a YouTube watcher, and vice versa. If you're primarily a listener on the audio platforms, that's great. Please keep doing that. But also please subscribe on YouTube as well. I know personally I am an audio guy for my podcast, but I know especially younger people like to watch YouTube. I get it. Do whatever you want to do, but please subscribe and listen and all that fun stuff. Tell your friends about the podcast as well. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. I am there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland, and you can find my non-podcast Hawks coverage at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, that's all I have. Enjoy your Friday evening into Saturday, and we'll see you in about 24 hours. So stay tuned. We'll see you all next time.